He owned everything inside that mansion, except the truth hidden beneath it. For years, Adrian Whitmore believed there was nothing in his world that could escape his attention. The White Mafia Boss had built his reputation on control, precision, and the ability to see every detail before anyone else could. His name carried influence across the city, and his presence alone could change the atmosphere of any room. Yet on one quiet evening inside the Blackwood estate, Adrian discovered that the greatest secret was not outside his empire. It was hidden beneath his own home. The mansion stood beneath the soft glow of evening lights, its marble floors reflecting the footsteps of a man who had spent his entire life surrounded by power. Adrian walked through the halls wearing his signature black tailored suit, a black shirt slightly open at the collar revealing part of his permanent black and gray tattoos across his upper chest. His dark brown hair was slicked back with natural gray strands blending through, and his short boxed beard carried subtle silver details that showed his years of experience. His brown eyes remained calm, confident, and unreadable, the expression of a man who rarely allowed emotions to control his decisions. But that night was different. A small detail caught his attention. A door that was rarely discussed. A space in his own estate that seemed to hold a story nobody wanted to tell. Adrian had spent years believing loyalty surrounded him, but silence had a way of revealing what words tried to hide. When he entered the forgotten area beneath the mansion, he found Olivia Carter, the black maid who had worked quietly inside his home for years. The woman most people noticed only when they needed something done. The woman who always greeted others with patience, even when they failed to see her worth. Olivia was a beautiful black woman in her early 30s, with deep ebony brown skin, an elegant oval face, high cheekbones, almond-shaped dark brown eyes, and a calm presence that never demanded attention but always deserved respect. She had always carried herself with dignity, even when others treated her as if she were invisible. Adrian expected many things when he discovered the hidden truth beneath his mansion, but he never expected to see the person who had quietly protected his household become the person nobody had protected. The room felt different in that moment. The powerful man who believed he understood everything suddenly realized how much he had failed to notice. Olivia did not look at him with anger. She looked at him with a quiet strength that made him question everything he thought he knew. She had every reason to lose faith in people, yet she still carried kindness in her eyes. Adrian stood there in silence, realizing that the person everyone underestimated might be the one person who understood the meaning of true strength. And for the first time in many years, the man who controlled everything had no immediate answer. He only had questions. What else had been hidden from him? How many times had Olivia tried to speak and nobody listened? And how could a man who knew how to protect his entire world fail to protect someone inside it? That night marked the beginning of a journey Adrian never expected. A journey where the greatest discovery was not a secret beneath the mansion, but the truth about himself. The most dangerous secrets are not the ones hidden behind locked doors. They are the ones hidden in plain sight. After the discovery beneath the Blackwood estate, Adrian Whitmore could no longer look at his own home the same way. The halls that once represented success and control now felt different. Every quiet corner seemed to carry a question he had ignored for too long. The White Mafia Boss had spent decades learning how to read people, but Olivia Carter had shown him something unexpected. Sometimes the person who speaks the least has the most important story to tell. The following morning, Adrian returned to his office overlooking the city. The room was exactly as it had always been. The polished wooden desk, the expensive furniture, and the view of the skyline represented everything he had built. Yet for the first time, the room did not make him feel powerful. It reminded him of everything he had failed to notice. Adrian sat quietly, reviewing years of information about the people who worked inside his estate. He expected to find small details, ordinary records, anything that could explain what happened. Instead, he discovered something that bothered him more than any secret. Olivia had been part of the household for years, and almost every record described her only by her position. Black maid, employee, assistant. Almost no one had written about who she actually was. Adrian looked at the documents and realized that the world around him had reduced a person into a title. That thought stayed with him. Meanwhile, Olivia remained in a quiet guest room inside the estate, recovering from the emotional weight of everything that had happened. She was not someone who searched for sympathy. She had always carried herself with patience and dignity. Her deep ebony brown skin, elegant oval face, high cheekbones, almond-shaped dark brown eyes, and natural graceful appearance reflected a woman who had learned to remain strong without losing her kindness. Adrian expected anger when he finally spoke with her. He expected accusations. Instead, Olivia simply told him the truth. She explained that she had noticed problems inside the estate long before anyone else. She had tried to bring attention to unusual behavior, but people often dismissed her because of her role. Her words were calm, but they carried the weight of years of being unheard. Adrian listened carefully. For a man who was used to making decisions, listening was unfamiliar. But every sentence from Olivia revealed something he had never considered. She was not asking him to feel sorry for her. She was asking him to understand. That difference changed everything. Adrian realized Olivia had never lost her dignity, even when others failed to recognize it. She had protected the household, helped people around her, and continued showing compassion despite being overlooked. The realization created a feeling Adrian rarely experienced. Not guilt alone, but responsibility. For the first time, he questioned whether the greatest weakness in his empire was not the people against him, but the silence among those closest to him. As evening arrived, Adrian stood near the mansion windows watching the lights outside. The man who once believed power meant having every answer now understood that wisdom sometimes began with a simple choice: to listen. And somewhere inside that quiet mansion, the woman everyone ignored had become the person who opened his eyes. The truth inside a powerful man's world is often the hardest thing to accept. Adrian Whitmore had spent years believing that loyalty surrounded him, but the discovery involving Olivia Carter forced him to question everything he had built. The White Mafia Boss was known for his ability to control situations before they became problems, yet now he found himself facing a reality he could not ignore. The answers he needed were not hidden in distant places. They were inside the walls of his own estate. Over the next few days, Adrian quietly began investigating what had happened. He did not make rushed decisions. He did not rely on assumptions. Instead, he watched, listened, and paid attention to details that he had previously overlooked. For a man who had always valued quick judgment, this new approach felt unfamiliar. But Olivia had shown him that understanding required patience. As Adrian reviewed the history of the Blackwood estate, he noticed a pattern. Certain employees had always controlled information before it reached him. Small concerns were dismissed before they ever reached his office. Questions were answered before he could ask them. The system around him had been carefully designed to keep him informed only about what others wanted him to know. Meanwhile, Olivia had been quietly observing everything. She remembered conversations, noticed changes, and understood the relationships inside the mansion better than anyone realized. When Adrian asked her why she never tried harder to make people listen, Olivia looked at him calmly and explained that she had learned something over the years. Sometimes people do not ignore the truth because they cannot hear it. They ignore it because accepting it would require them to change. Those words stayed with Adrian. He realized that his position had created a distance between himself and the people around him. Many people saw him as someone impossible to approach. They believed their concerns would never matter. Olivia had not been invisible because she lacked value. She had been invisible because others chose not to see. That realization changed something inside Adrian. He began seeing Olivia differently. She was not simply an employee in his home. She was someone with intelligence, experience, and a perspective that had been ignored for far too long. One evening, Adrian walked through the same halls where Olivia had worked for years. He noticed small things he had never paid attention to before. The careful organization of the household. The way Olivia helped others without expecting recognition. The quiet kindness she showed even when nobody thanked her. Those details revealed a truth that surprised him. The person with the least official power had shown the greatest sense of responsibility. Adrian understood that the problem was not only what had happened to Olivia. The deeper problem was a culture where people were valued by their position instead of their character. For the first time, the man who controlled a powerful world felt the weight of a different responsibility. Not protecting his reputation, protecting the people who trusted him. And as Adrian looked across the mansion that night, he knew the next step would not be easy. Discovering the truth was only the beginning. Now he had to decide what kind of man he wanted to become. The hardest truths are not the ones that surprise us. They are the ones that force us to look at ourselves differently. Adrian Whitmore had spent his entire life building a world where every decision had a purpose and every person around him had a role. But after understanding Olivia Carter's story, he began to see that his greatest mistake was believing that power gave him complete awareness. The White Mafia boss had controlled businesses, protected his reputation, and managed countless challenges, yet he had failed to notice the quiet struggles happening inside his own home. Now, Adrian was ready to face the people who had allowed the truth to remain hidden. The grand meeting room of the Blackwood estate was filled with silence as Adrian entered. The atmosphere changed. Immediately, everyone recognized the expression on his face. It was not anger. It was something more serious. It was the look of a man who had discovered the difference between protecting an image and protecting what was right. Adrian stood at the head of the room, wearing his signature black tailored suit, his black shirt slightly open to reveal part of his permanent black and gray tattoos. His dark brown slicked back hair with natural gray strands and his short boxed beard gave him the same powerful appearance everyone knew. But something about him had changed. His confidence no longer came from distance. It came from clarity. Olivia stood nearby, calm and composed. She did not need to prove anything. Her presence alone carried the strength that Adrian had finally learned to recognize. Her deep ebony brown skin, elegant oval face, almond-shaped dark brown eyes, and graceful appearance reflected the same dignity she had shown from the beginning. Adrian asked questions that had never been asked before. He wanted to know why Olivia's concerns were ignored. He wanted to understand how people inside his own estate could silence someone who had spent years helping others. The answers revealed a truth that was uncomfortable but necessary. Some people had underestimated Olivia because they only saw her position. They never took the time to see her character. Adrian listened as explanations were given, and every word confirmed what he had already begun to understand. The problem was not only one hidden event. The problem was a mindset that allowed certain people to feel invisible. In that moment, Adrian made a decision. He would not handle the situation by creating fear. He would handle it by creating accountability. He wanted the truth to be known, not because it would strengthen his reputation, but because Olivia deserved to be heard. The room became quiet as everyone realized that the man standing before them was not the same person who had walked into the mansion years earlier. He still carried authority. He still commanded respect. But now, he understood responsibility. Olivia watched silently as Adrian chose a different path. She saw that he was not simply trying to correct a mistake. He was learning from it. And for the first time, the people inside the estate witnessed something unexpected. A man known for power discovering the strength of humility. That day, Adrian learned that leadership was not measured by how many people followed his orders. It was measured by how many people felt safe enough to speak the truth. The moment Adrian Whitmore chose accountability over appearance became the moment everything inside the Blackwood estate began to change. For years, the mansion had been a place where people followed routines, respected titles, and avoided difficult conversations. But after the truth came to light, the walls that once represented distance slowly became a place where honesty could finally exist. Adrian knew that correcting one situation would not erase years of silence. Real change required understanding the people who had been overlooked for far too long. The White Mafia boss began spending more time observing the everyday life of his estate. He noticed the small details that had always been there, but had never truly reached his attention. He saw employees who worked quietly without recognition. He saw moments of kindness that happened without expecting anything in return. And he saw Olivia Carter continuing to treat everyone with the same patience she had always shown, even after everything she had experienced. Olivia remained the same person Adrian had discovered beneath the mansion. She did not use her situation to gain sympathy or attention. She simply continued being herself. Her deep ebony brown skin, elegant oval face, almond-shaped dark brown eyes, and natural graceful appearance reflected the quiet confidence she carried every day. Adrian admired that strength because it was something he could not create with money, influence, or reputation. One afternoon, Adrian asked Olivia to walk with him through the garden behind the estate. The peaceful surroundings were different from the tense atmosphere that had surrounded their first conversations. For the first time, they spoke without barriers created by titles or positions. Adrian admitted that he had spent most of his life believing that having power meant having control. Olivia listened carefully before explaining that control and understanding were not the same thing. A person could control a room and still fail to understand the people inside it. Those words stayed with Adrian. He realized Olivia had taught him a lesson that no business strategy or position of influence ever could. She showed him that people were not problems to manage. They were lives to respect. Adrian asked Olivia why she continued helping others even when many people failed to appreciate her. She answered simply that kindness was not something she gave because others deserved it. It was something she gave because it represented who she was. That response changed the way Adrian viewed strength. He had always associated strength with confidence, authority, and the ability to command. Olivia showed him another kind of strength. The strength to remain compassionate in difficult circumstances. The strength to keep dignity when others refused to recognize it. As the sun moved lower over the garden, Adrian looked at the mansion behind them and saw it differently. It was no longer just a symbol of wealth or influence. It was a place filled with people whose stories mattered. Olivia had not changed Adrian by demanding anything from him. She changed him by reminding him of something he had forgotten. Every person, regardless of their position, carried value that could never be measured by status. And for the first time, Adrian understood that the greatest responsibility of power was not being above others. It was remembering that everyone deserved to be seen. Change rarely happens in a single moment. Sometimes it begins with one person choosing to see what others refuse to notice. After everything that happened inside the Blackwood estate, Adrian Whitmore understood that rebuilding trust would require more than words. The White Mafia Boss had spent years creating a powerful image, one built on confidence, control, and respect. But now he discovered that true leadership required something different. It required consistency. It required listening. It required action that people could actually feel. In the weeks that followed, Adrian began transforming the way the estate operated. He started asking questions instead of assuming he already knew the answers. He created opportunities for employees to share their concerns directly. He paid attention to the people who had always worked quietly in the background. For many inside the mansion, the change was surprising. They had known Adrian as a man who was difficult to approach, someone whose presence demanded attention but rarely invited conversation. Now they saw a different side of him. He was still confident. He was still powerful. He still carried the same commanding presence with his dark brown slicked-back hair, natural gray strands, short boxed beard, luxury black suit, and permanent black and gray tattoos across his neck, chest, and hands. But the way he used his influence had changed. Olivia Carter noticed the difference more than anyone. She never expected gratitude or special treatment. She had always believed that respect was something shown through actions, not promises. Watching Adrian change reminded her that people could grow when they were willing to face uncomfortable truths. One morning, Olivia walked through the mansion and saw something she had rarely seen before. Employees were speaking openly. People felt comfortable sharing ideas. The atmosphere that once felt distant had become warmer and more connected. It was not because Adrian demanded it. It was because he created a space where people felt valued. Later that day, Adrian and Olivia spoke in the quiet library of the estate. The room was filled with sunlight passing through tall windows, creating a peaceful contrast to the difficult days they had left behind. Adrian admitted that he had spent years protecting his world without realizing that some people inside it needed someone to simply listen. Olivia told him that recognizing a mistake was not a sign of weakness. It was proof that someone was willing to become better. Those words stayed with Adrian because they represented the greatest lesson he had learned. Strength was not about never being wrong. Strength was about having the courage to change when the truth was revealed. Olivia remained the same person she had always been. Her deep ebony brown skin, elegant oval face, almond-shaped dark brown eyes, and natural graceful beauty reflected the confidence of someone who understood her own worth. She had never needed power to prove her value. She had carried that value from the beginning. As evening arrived over the Blackwood estate, Adrian stood outside looking across the property that once represented only success and control. Now it represented something more meaningful. It represented responsibility, understanding, and the possibility of becoming a better person. The man who once believed power meant standing above others finally understood that real influence came from standing with them. And Olivia, the woman everyone had overlooked, became the person who reminded him of the truth he needed most. Everyone deserves to be seen. The greatest changes are often noticed in the quietest moments. After rebuilding trust inside the Blackwood estate, Adrian Whitmore discovered that the most important transformation was not happening around him. It was happening within him. The White Mafia boss who once measured success through influence and control was beginning to understand the value of connection. His world was still powerful, his reputation still carried weight, but the way he viewed the people around him had completely changed. For years, Adrian had lived behind a wall of confidence. His calm expression, commanding presence, and carefully controlled emotions made others believe they could never truly understand him. But Olivia Carter had shown him that strength was not created by keeping everyone at a distance. It was created by having the courage to recognize the humanity in others. Olivia continued her daily work inside the mansion with the same grace she had always carried. She never acted differently because of Adrian's attention or the changes happening around her. Her deep ebony brown skin, elegant oval face, almond-shaped dark brown eyes, and natural refined beauty remained the same. But Adrian now noticed the qualities he had overlooked before. He saw her patience when others were frustrated. He saw her kindness when nobody was watching. He saw the quiet confidence of someone who knew her own worth. One evening, Adrian found Olivia in the mansion library organizing old records. The room was peaceful, filled with warm light and the soft sound of pages turning. Unlike their first conversations, there was no tension between them. There was simply two people speaking honestly. Adrian asked Olivia what she thought about the changes happening inside the estate. Olivia answered that change was meaningful only when it continued after people stopped watching. Her words reminded him that true respect was not something shown during important moments. It was something practiced every day. Adrian thought about that carefully. In his previous life, people often respected his position before they respected him as a person. Olivia was different. She never treated him like a title. She treated him like a human being who had the ability to make better choices. That honesty was something Adrian valued more than any compliment he had ever received. As the days passed, the people around them began noticing the unique connection between the two. It was not built on status or obligation. It was built on understanding. Adrian respected Olivia's wisdom, and Olivia recognized Adrian's willingness to grow. Their relationship represented something rare inside a world often defined by power. It showed that two people from completely different backgrounds could find common ground through respect. Adrian still carried the appearance of the powerful man everyone knew. His dark brown slicked back hair with natural gray strands, short boxed beard with silver details, luxury black suit, and permanent black and gray tattoos remained symbols of his identity. But those symbols no longer represented distance. They represented a man who had learned to use his strength differently. Looking across the mansion grounds one evening, Adrian realized something important. Olivia had never needed his power to become valuable. She had been valuable from the beginning. He was simply one of the last people to recognize it. And that realization changed the way he saw not only Olivia, but the entire world around him. The truth had changed the Blackwood estate forever, but Adrian Whitmore knew that understanding the past was only the beginning. The next challenge was deciding what kind of future he wanted to create. The White Mafia boss had spent years building a world where loyalty was expected and obedience was common. Now he was learning that respect could not be demanded. It had to be earned through the way a person treated others when nobody was watching. As time passed, the changes inside the mansion became impossible to ignore. People who once stayed silent began sharing their thoughts. Employees who had always worked quietly began feeling recognized. The atmosphere of the estate was no longer shaped by fear of making mistakes. It was shaped by trust and communication. Adrian noticed these changes every day, and each one reminded him of the lesson Olivia Carter had given him. The woman everyone had underestimated had helped him see the world from a different perspective. Olivia remained humble throughout the transformation. She never acted as if she had won anything. She never used her experience to make others feel ashamed. Instead, she continued showing the same patience and kindness that had defined her from the beginning. Her deep ebony brown skin, elegant oval face, almond-shaped dark brown eyes, and natural graceful appearance reflected the quiet confidence she carried. Adrian admired that Olivia never needed attention to prove her strength. Her actions spoke louder than any words could. One afternoon, a difficult conversation took place inside the estate. Adrian gathered the people closest to him and explained that the future of the household would be built on honesty and responsibility. He made it clear that every person deserved to be heard, regardless of their position. The room remained quiet as everyone absorbed his words. They had expected orders from Adrian. They did not expect reflection. They did not expect a powerful man to acknowledge that he had overlooked important truths. Olivia watched from a distance and recognized the difference between a temporary apology and genuine change. Adrian was not trying to erase the past. He was accepting it and choosing to move forward differently. That was what made the transformation real. Later that evening, Adrian walked through the mansion halls where so many unanswered questions had once existed. The same walls that had carried silence now carried conversations. The same rooms that had once represented distance now represented connection. He realized that the greatest achievement of his life was not the empire he had built. It was the person he was becoming. Olivia had never tried to change Adrian through pressure or demands. She changed him by showing him a different definition of strength. A strength built on compassion, understanding, and responsibility. Adrian still carried the image of the powerful man everyone knew. His dark brown slicked-back hair with natural gray strands, short boxed beard, luxury black suit, and permanent black and gray tattoos remained part of his identity. But behind that image was now a person who understood something deeper. Power without compassion created distance. Power with humility created respect. As the night settled over the Blackwood estate, Adrian looked back at everything that had happened. The secret that once brought confusion had revealed a truth he would never forget. The person who had been ignored by everyone else had become the person who helped him see clearly. And in that quiet moment, Adrian knew that the greatest changes often begin when someone finally chooses to listen. The greatest lesson Adrian Whitmore ever learned was not written in any business record, spoken during any important meeting, or found inside the powerful world he had built. It was discovered in the quiet moments when he finally understood the value of every person around him. Months after the truth inside the Blackwood estate was revealed, the mansion no longer felt like the same place. The halls that once carried silence now carried conversations. The rooms that once separated people by position now reflected a sense of connection. Adrian had spent most of his life believing that power was measured by influence, control, and the ability to make difficult decisions. But Olivia Carter showed him that the strongest people were often those who remained kind when they had every reason not to. The White Mafia Boss still carried the presence that made people respect him. His dark brown slicked-back hair with natural gray strands, short boxed beard with silver details, luxury black suit, and permanent black and gray tattoos across his neck, chest, hands, and fingers remained symbols of the man everyone knew. His calm expression, confident posture, and powerful presence had not disappeared. They had simply gained a new meaning. Adrian was no longer someone who used power to create distance. He used it to create opportunities for people to be heard. Olivia Carter continued to live with the same dignity she had always shown. She never wanted recognition for what she had done. She never looked for praise. Her deep ebony brown skin, elegant oval face, almond-shaped dark brown eyes, natural makeup, and graceful appearance reflected the same quiet strength that had been there from the beginning. She understood that true value did not come from titles, wealth, or social position. It came from character. One evening, Adrian and Olivia stood together outside the Blackwood estate as the sun slowly disappeared behind the horizon. The mansion behind them represented more than luxury. It represented a journey of change. Adrian looked at the place where he had once believed he understood everything and realized that the most important lessons came from the people he had overlooked. He thanked Olivia not because he believed he had saved her, but because he understood she had helped him discover a better version of himself. Olivia smiled and reminded him that change was never about becoming someone completely different. It was about remembering the values people sometimes forget along the way. The world around Adrian had changed because he had changed first. His employees felt respected. His decisions carried more meaning. His influence became something that could help rather than separate. The man who once believed strength meant standing above others finally understood that real strength came from standing beside them. The story of Adrian and Olivia was never about wealth, status, or power. It was about two people from different worlds discovering that respect could overcome assumptions and that dignity belonged to everyone. Adrian once thought he controlled every corner of his world, but the greatest truth he found was that the person everyone ignored was the person who helped him finally see clearly. And that day, the world remembered what dignity looks like.